Torvald has just been revealed, and wow, this champion is rather interesting and something completely different to what we've seen before in Paladins, and definitely flies in the fantasy region. Anyway, let's just get straight into it. Torvald is an elf that has spent all of his life looking for these runes, these magic items that now make up his hand, or at least he now wears on his right hand. And actually the animations on this right hand gauntlet are really cool. The runes, or like rock runes, spin around on the wrist like a bracelet that's spinning, and his fingers can actually, his hand can come off and spin around, and that's shown in one of the emotes. He generally looks like a gold man, to be honest, and we don't really have one of those yet in the game, so although I guess Makoa perhaps is old, who knows, he's got ancient rage, so maybe he's thousands of years old too, and I guess Evie is also thousands of year old witch, but yeah, he's one of the older characters that's fitting into this game. So first off, Torvald has a very different health pool to the other characters. Like Ruckus, he has a shield, and his shield is actually a runic shield, and basically works by having a pool that can be recharged or depleted. His base health is 3,950, but with shield that goes to 9,950, so in effect he's basically the tankiest tank in the game, or the tankiest frontliner at the moment. So early game, when people don't have Wrecker, he's going to be extremely tanky, and he does pay for that because he doesn't have a movement ability. But at the same time, the further you get into the game and the more Wrecker the enemy team builds, the worse that shield is going to be effectively at having a bigger health pool. And although he does already have 4,000 health base pretty much, so he isn't necessarily untanky in the first place. But to go on now to the abilities that sort of influence this health, he has a right click which you can either use to recharge your shield out of combat and not at an enemy, and it just recharges your shield normally, or you can go to an enemy with a shield on and right click on them and steal their shield and recharge that way. So you've got two ways to recharge. They said it'd take quite a few of these recharges to get the shield back to full health, so you don't necessarily have that health pool all the time, and you can't be healed with that health pool to get it back in the normal sense for a healer to do it to you. So it's actually quite difficult for you to get your health back once you've lost it. So he isn't necessarily this super tank all of the time, and once he has been bursted down and he's taken a lot of damage on the point, then he is going to be quite vulnerable. Going on to the left click, it's actually a lock-on ability. Unlike all the other default attacks in the game, this one you just have to fire relatively near an enemy to lock on and hit them. The damage is fairly low with only 50 every tick. I don't know how many ticks there is every second. You might want to look at this video and try and time it, and you might be able to work it out. But currently, I'm not 100% sure what that is. But it doesn't look like it's a high amount of damage. He isn't going to be like, he isn't a character for dishing out large amounts of damage. And with his right click, his shield depleter, he also has some other abilities because he is almost like on the border of a support and a frontliner. He has a lot of utility. So the other part is that he can put little bubble shields on allies. The shield has a high health. They didn't say how much it was, whether you can break it in the time that it's on or not. But they said it looked like it only took about 3 shots from Cassie to break it, or 2 shots even. And it lasts for 2 seconds, so isn't a big one, but basically will be able to stop enemies from killing allies if they're really squishy. And think using it on like an Eevee in a fight, or somebody that's been hooked, or somebody that's just been ultied, like a Rux is ultied on them, putting that shield on them is gonna maybe save them from the damage that they take. It doesn't look like this bubble shield can be put on yourself, so you can't use extra shield on yourself, but on allies this is definitely going to be a utility to stop them from dying. The next one is a silence. Basically, if you fire this runic blast in front of you, and it blasts in a small area with AoE and silences the enemies. They said that the silence would stop enemies from attacking, but the bot in the footage was still firing, so I'm not 100% sure whether this will just stop the abilities from being able to go off, or if it will stop the abilities and being able to fire. But either way, this is something that we haven't seen a lot of in the game. It is in sort of like Meldumba's Fear, you can't use abilities, or the other CC stuns, where you can't basically do anything. but a silence will be interesting to use in the game, and again makes this tank, or this frontliner, more of a utility, and again he sort of is on the balancing, on the edge of being a support champion as well. Even though he can't heal, he's got basically these shields and these silencers which do a lot of support for his ally team. So all of his normal abilities, he doesn't have an escape, so like Tyra, with a little mobility, he is really vulnerable to enemies that do have high mobility, which is pretty much all the other champions in the game. So there is going to be a problem with Torvald at trying to take on enemies 1v1 or trying to take on enemies in like a front assault. He's going to have a hard time being kited by enemies that can just roll away from him, like a Cassie, and do damage to him, or enemies that can sort of push him away or do any sort of like knockback. He's going to really struggle with, or enemies that take him on from far away like a Kinessa or a Charlene, for example. However, his ultimate is kind of an escape, although it isn't Torvald doing the escaping, it's kind of the enemies, and by escape I mean involuntarily exit the map or the universe, it seems, with how powerful this is. Basically, he shoots a beam, and this beam does very small amounts of damage, but mainly pushes everyone back really far. Like it's almost like a fire hydrant pointing at somebody and basically really pushing them far into the distance and really flinging them away. It actually looks really cool. And this is going to be one of the most fun ultimates in the game. Mark my words, this will be fun to use. I can see Frog Isles, like right now, clearly in my mind, using this ultimate and like pushing 5 people off the edge of the map. It'll be hilarious and does look like a lot of fun. Also, apparently, if a Makoa hooks you, because you're not CC immune when using this ultimate, so it isn't like a click and win ability. If you get stunned or you get pulled out of their ultimate, then you're going to go with whoever you've pushed. So if a Makoa grabs you and you've flung them into the air, you're going to go ahead and go off the edge of the map with that Makoa, so bear that in mind. And this is probably the balancing act of keeping him out of the overpowered region. Personally, how is Torvald going to fit into the meta? Personally, because he doesn't have a long time into the end game, I don't know whether he'll be picked alone. I think he's going to be picked like a Ruckus now with another tank. He can do a lot of support, he can do lots of silence, he can, with his pushback, push enemies off a point or push them off the edge of the map, and he can give shields to allies, but he can't really sit on his own towards the end of the game and tank the point or fight on a point and do... He doesn't have so much damage to deal out, to dish out, and it's going to be hard for him to sit on a point and really rumble with the enemies. Like imagine if a Charlene has Wrecker and Qs on a point and just completely obliterates his main health in that shield pool, and then he's going to be very vulnerable then with just the lower 4,000 health, still not too low, but he doesn't have an escape ability, he doesn't have a forward shield, and the only way to recharge his shield is to right click and sort of be slowed whilst you're right clicking and not being able to attack back as well, which is his recharge on his right click. And also his fire slows you down, so the left click slows you down, so he's going to be very vulnerable to basically everything, to be honest, unless he has somebody else to be with, somebody to get behind, and somebody to protect him. There could be some matters with Torvald being a single tank, but making other allies tankier, so maybe having loads of damage characters and putting bubbles on them, and maybe even with a Tyra who isn't picked up very often at the moment because they don't have a movement ability, putting a shield on them and basically letting them tank whilst doing loads of damage up front. But we'll just have to see on that one. Either way, the design is great. I like the fact that there's this sort of new aspect to the runes. There's a silence which we haven't seen much apart from the Maldamba ultimate, which sort of fears and silences enemies. And generally, the pushback ability is also interesting and different, and it goes more towards the sort of the more crazy, over-the-top abilities of MOBA games and also of the fantasy genre, and he is going to fit in snugly and generally looks like a great character, and I've got to say I'm looking forward to him coming out. And even if he isn't going to be like the main part of the meta and going to be one of the stronger characters, he's going to add something really interesting and maybe shake up some metas that some of the competitive players and the teams that have been looking at the meta for a long time don't expect, and will have to adapt to combat, I guess. What does everyone else think about Torvald? Are you all looking forward to him in OB42? And apparently they're looking to get the PTS out this weekend, and if they do, I'm going to be doing some games on my Discord trying to get 5v5s on that public test server. So get the public test server downloaded now, because you literally have to download each patch, and so you'll be able to get up to 41 now, although the PTS will be down. But once we do those games on Discord, then you should be able to get in game with me on the day when we do OB42. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing him, even if he's not going to be this sort of like glass cannon or anything like that. He literally is sort of a tank and support mixed together, and I'm looking forward to that. Let's bring it on. There are loads more changes in OB42, and like I've said, I want to do that in another video. It'll probably come tomorrow, going over all the changes, what I feel about them, the buffs, the nerfs, and all of the cosmetic stuff as well. And generally, things are looking good in this patch. Although we've had those little wobbles and I had that rant before, these ones in OB42 are good. Mostly. Anyway, be sure to let me know your thoughts and everything else in the comments section below, or if you don't like Torvald at all, maybe he's not your cup of tea. And maybe also some speculation about Blade, the cat or feline assassin character that might be coming very soon. And as always, like or dislike if you enjoyed the video or didn't like it, and subscribe for more of my content. Until next time everybody, Joshino.